Hey, Brad, welcome to CES. We're surrounded by literally the future of everything. So, on that note, how do you stay in the moment? How do you stay in the moment, especially when you're traveling, being in the present?
It's a great question, Jeremy. Thanks for doing this and talking with me about it. I think with travel, it's so personal that regardless if it's for work or for pleasure, um, I'm kind of in the moment of wherever I'm at. And so I found myself being on work trips, kind of sometimes forgetting I'm actually working because I'm enjoying the experience of traveling to a different city, of being in a different hotel, of experiencing the room. And so for me, I found it to be like an absolutely fabulous job because I feel like I'm living these adventures and learning all these new things and getting to experience all these new cultures. But I'm actually learning about our product, learning about our services, learning about how we run hotels. And I've never had really my job and my kind of personal passions blend that much. And so sometimes it is kind of funny. I'll have to step out and be like, oh, I'm actually here this is part of work. But I think the experiences that you go on when you're traveling and when you're staying in a hotel and when you're trying a new restaurant, um, you know, I, I do feel like I'm in the moment, but then I try to sometimes pull out of that to say, okay, how could this experience be better? Like, how could we be more frictionless for a customer? How could the service amp up a level to make this brand feel more differentiated? And so I do try to kind of pause and pull myself out of it, but it's hard to do when you're immersed kind of in travel because everything is so interesting and new a lot of the times.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the memory making part of it starts to become those data points you can go back and collect, you can go back to. So you get to do both jobs, right? You get to get those memories that you have, but you also get to use those as, kindling or engine for the next thing you get to make.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I think, for a global job and for my job, I travel a lot. Like I'm just naturally in hotels a lot. And so part of that is, traveling can be difficult and hard, but I also feel like it allows you to kind of experience the product all the time. And for people that, are on the road a lot, you kind of become good at traveling. You become good at understanding like things you like, things you don't like, how to make things more frictionless so you can get from point to A to B to C more quickly and efficiently. And so, yeah, it gives you tons of ideas when you're experiencing, a very kind of like more budget friendly hotel, off the side of a highway that's just kind of like a quick overnight versus like a resort that you're going into and staying at for 7 days that you're maybe doing some kind of bigger experience in. And those all, to your point, give you kind of like ideas for how you can make those experiences more remarkable.
So one question I have is just this really great tension between the scale of how many Bonvoy members you have, 260 million, relative to making that feel really personal for every guest and the journey that they're on individually.
It's the ultimate. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. It's actually the ultimate goal that we're trying to achieve is how to be personal at scale. And I think, the benefit of having such a great platform where so many members want to be a part of it, they want to earn loyalty, they want to find rewards in that, is that we know a lot about customers, obviously operating within the guardrails of privacy. And everything we learn more, it allows us to kind of make that experience a little more personalized. Especially for the people that travel a lot. When you start hitting platinum and titanium and ambassador levels of travel, those folks, generally they like to be recognized. And when they come into a hotel, we want to take care of them. And so understanding, preferences they have on things on diet, the kinds of rooms they like to stay in, the kinds of amenities they want, how we can serve them better. I think that's all really part of how we aspire to have that personal connection. The business of hospitality, I think of like marketing as like it's trying to get to that customer insight and trying to really serve the customer. I don't really know if there's another industry outside of hospitality that does that more authentically, because you really have to try to like serve somebody if you're in that business. And the associates that work across, the 10,000 hotels that Marriott has and growing, there's hundreds of thousands of people that are doing those jobs every day, and they know our customers so well. And so having a great, huge loyalty platform that's got great data, but also having associates, which are like the frontline workers that are seeing what's working and what's not, it's a tremendous asset to have so that we can continue to make our products and services more personal, more authentic, better for people, so they want to come back to it time and time again.
I think I mean, you really do have that treasure trove of data.
Yeah.
And I always think data is a little bit now like where video was before, where clients would say, you had me create all this content. I don't know what to do with it now. I feel like data is in the same spot where it's like, I have all this data. How do I action on it? How do you take from literally the ground level employees kind of getting that feedback all the way to the Bonvoy platform itself? Like, how do you figure out what to action on? How do you figure out what to kind of, again, what bubbling to the top, I guess?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think it comes down to a couple of things that we try to do with the Marriott. One is like getting really upfront, smart about the kind of questions that we're asking. Like, to your point, there's endless amounts of data, but if we're not asking specific questions to learn about and then following up with another question behind that, you can get really lost in like what all the data is meaning and try to make sense of it. So really, I think getting really thoughtful about questions and what we're trying to learn is one thing. The second thing is a process that we have within our group. One of our teams that's in my organization is a experience design group, and they run a lot of innovation programs that start at really mapping out the customer journey. And kind of previous to this, I always thought about customer journeys of the media kind of journey of like working through the funnel. This is a true customer journey of like when someone is like on the concept of thinking about a trip all the way through when they're like had an amazing experience and then are remembering it afterwards. And so I think marketing and journeys are like pretty synonymous. People talk about that a lot, but this is truly like a journey. And so we use those journeys to be able to kind of map out where are these points where people are running into like barriers, or where there are opportunities for us to add a service or a delightful moment to somebody's life. And that's when we can start to get more fine-tuned into the data to kind of say, okay, let's go figure this out. Why is this happening in this specific point? How do we make it better? And so again, it comes back to that informs a lot of the questions that we ask to try to like use the data in the most, I think, effective way. But it's a challenge. I mean, I think a lot of companies are facing the same thing. You've got insights and data all over the place. It's like, it's almost paralyzing when you don't start, I think, with a good question.
Yeah, it's the age of paralysis by analysis. You have so much stuff, you don't really know where to start.
Yeah.
I think, I always hated the term innovation for innovation's sake, because by definition, like, you should always be innovating. You should always be trying new things. That said, I do think there's a point where the innovation starts to overshadow the experience and not be in service of it.
Yeah, I think
for hospitality, I'd love to hear like, what are some of the things that I think have inspired you on the hospitality front, or projects where you really feel like it's sort of the referee that no one saw, like there was a thing there that you guys enacted that people just rolled right into?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think one of the examples I'll give you is like really fundamentally having great products to actually sleep in. And so it's like we can do a lot of programming and have a lot of amenities in other parts of the hotel, but your job number one going into a hotel is to get a great night's sleep. So one of the brands that we're really proud of at Marriott is the Westin brand, which is all about wellness. And so it thinks about that through a couple of different categories. One is through eating, one is through movement, and the third is through sleeping. And sleep is really becoming so important to customers. I mean, I think, now we're wearing devices to measure how well we slept at night. What's the right temperature for me to sleep at? How many hours of REM did I get? And so, a number of years back, the Westin team did a phenomenal job of designing the heavenly bed. And I don't know if you slept in one of them. I think you said Westin is one of your hotels.
Yeah.
It truly is like a remarkable night's sleep. And so, we've kind of evolved that bed into like bringing a second version of it, even the sheets and even the texture on the pillowcases, the scent that's next to the bed. It's all been designed with like helping that person have the best night of sleep. And so a lot of times I think it's coming back to the basics of like, what's the job to be done? And then instead of having to innovate a bunch of new things that maybe don't really add that much value, it's like, well, can we do that job better? And usually the answer is like, yes. And it'll actually add more incremental value. So we're really kind of focused, I think, on some of those core areas, and restaurants is another case. When you have a great restaurant at your hotel, a lot of people don't know this. Marriott has some of the most Michelin star hotels, like in its network of any hotel company. There's tremendous restaurants there. Yeah. And oftentimes I think because we're so big, we don't necessarily highlight them. And there's big opportunity for us to be able to do that, I think, more effectively. Again, do the basics well.
It's a huge hit when you're at a hotel that does not have a good restaurant. It's so funny with the room. You always think anecdotally like, oh, that was a great room. You can't identify the details of why.
Yeah.
And I think all those sensory experiences, those are things we just, great conversation outside around those sensory experiences being memorable. Those are the things we actually, it's not the touch of something, it's the touch and how it smelled. It's all those combinations of things that actually kind of matter.
All the factors that make a difference. Yeah. And I think, taking all that into account, even now temperature and the lighting and the scents and, what you can eat, like it does create the holistic experience. So, I give a lot of credit to our teams of designers and folks that think about the operations of the hotel. There's a lot of pieces to a hotel that I'm learning about as you go into it that can really add a lot to that experience. But running a hotel like the Aria, I'm like blown away. It's like a small city that takes to run, a property like this and make sure all those elements kind of fit together to create that experience. And so, the due diligence of the people who are running the hotels, the operators, the staff, the associates that do that. I mean, I think there's a great product in the building and the design, but also the service that goes along with that. It's like so complementary, and making sure those things both work well when it happens right. It's like really, you can feel that when you're in a hotel like that.
That's awesome. I think one last question. I think what's the big, of all the innovations you're working on for this next year?
Yeah.
What's something, at least a direction you're seeing sort of hotels or just, stays in general kind of take on globally?
Big thing that's a huge focus, and probably not surprising, is how we think about wellness and well-being. Every single demographic, every single continent, almost across every dimension of wellness is growing. And so, whether that's how you, what you put into your body from a nutrition point of view, how you want to think about fitness, even going back to emotional well-being, right? Like it's becoming so much more multidimensional. And so obviously we run hotels in many different countries and across continents. And so there's always variances and nuances to those things. But that is a trend that's coming in ways I think that it never has before. And obviously at CES, there's lots of things to look at here and how people are monitoring health and tracking health and what wearables they have. But ultimately, at the end of the day, to be able to, when you're traveling, be able to at least keep a baseline of where you were when you're at home is something that we're aspiring to do. In addition to that, there's more and more people that are taking wellness retreats and wellness trips. Like the sole purpose of that trip is to go do something, a yoga retreat or a mindfulness like experience. And so we're getting really thoughtful about how do we start to think about wellness more holistically. They're willing to pay more for those types of experiences and to treat their bodies right. It's something that we feel is going to be growing. And so we're thinking how that affects our portfolio and how that affects us we look at new brands.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Brad. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Jeremy. It's great to talk to you.